Woohoo!
So we just finished up 2 series.
I know.
The first series was really epistemology, which is the study of beliefs. Second series was ethics, right? And we studied the 7 deadly sins.
And their corresponding virtues.
Right, exactly. Next area of philosophy we're taking on,
Ooh.
political philosophy.
Oh, we're talking about politics?
Well, we're going to talk about political philosophy. So we're going to go underneath the common disagreements that we see in politics today. And we're going to understand if there's some sort of philosophical understanding that can help us understand why these conflicts exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, before we start this, I just want to caution you. Politics is weird. People are very sensitive about political conversations. And I'm going to challenge some assumptions you have, for sure. Because your whole political philosophy or background has, largely been defined by the internet over the past 5 years. So I just want you to know, like, this is gonna, we've been pretty, for a father-daughter teeter-totter series, we've been pretty balanced on the teeter-totter.
We haven't been very teetery-totter.
Not very up and down, right? This could be a little more that way. To help define our conversation on political philosophy, I want us to look through a singular political value as the lens of everything we're going to talk about. That value is freedom. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
What is freedom in your mind?
I think freedom is basically the ability to do whatever you want to do.
There you go, right? I think that's a pretty straightforward definition of it. I've said that freedom is a value, a human value, ultimately. Yeah. Is freedom something that you value?
I think that it's important in life to have freedom. Because obviously there has to be a balance between doing whatever you want to do and doing what makes most sense and doing what will affect other people in a positive way. But when it comes down to it, it is your life. And I think it's really important to be able to make the personal decisions in a way that matters most to you.
Do you think that freedom is a universal human value?
I mean, obviously, in politics, there are a lot of different places that all have different political landscapes. Like, the USA is very protective of their freedom and always yelling about democracy and stuff. And then you have other countries, and some countries are in dictatorships, some are monarchies, some are like monarchies, but there's also democracy mixed into it. And I think that even throughout all of the politics that are consuming different parts of the world, for each person, each individual person, there is, to different extents, a want to do what they want to do, even if their political landscape disagrees, because everyone has wants, and everyone is different, which means that everyone's wants and needs are different. And when controlled by one person or multiple people or some higher people, often all people are sort of sorted into one person that has common wants and needs, when that's just not really true and won't be personally satisfying.
You don't think that you're a freedom lover because of your Americanness. You think it's something beyond being an American.
I think that definitely has an influence on how I think, but I think that although I probably have like stronger opinions about freedom because of where I grew up, I think it's also just a very internal, intrinsic human thing to want to do what you want to do.
So if we're saying that freedom is a universal human value, there is a major line that we draw in American politics between liberals and conservatives.
Yeah.
Do they both value freedom equally?
No.
They don't.
No. From a semi-outsider's perspective, I would say that from just what I've seen online, which as you know is not the most reliable source, it seems that liberals value freedom a little bit more, and conservatives value like a common agreement and control over it more.
It's an interesting take that you have there, because there's no question that any conservative would say the exact opposite. That the central tenet of conservatism is freedom. Let's take a classic conservative issue, gun rights. Who would you say between the liberal and the conservative position on gun rights is the more freedom-oriented position?
Yeah, I would say it would definitely be conservatives.
Right? Take, for example, the question of taxation. Who's more of a proponent of divvying up what we each earn individually more equitably amongst people?
Liberals.
Right? So would you say that, once again, on the other side of freedom? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are a couple issues where conservatives clearly, I think, are on the freedom side. Let us do what we want, right?
Yeah.
Stop interfering with us.
Yeah.
And in fact, traditional conservatism is known as the party of small government, specifically. Right? So I think a small government is inherently a freedom-oriented position. That is an individual freedom-oriented position.
Yeah. If you would let me make a probably biased argument here.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Freedom is definitely up to interpretation, obviously not in the definition itself, but in the way that it is seen through different eyes. Because, well, it's definitely true that conservatives have many views that would seem to conform to freedom when you look at them. Like gun control, oh, well, control means you want to control, taking away freedom. Or, oh, like taxation is obviously controlling, so like take away freedom. And there's totally an aspect to freedom of them. I would also say there's an aspect of freedom to the other side, in that gun control, it could be said that by controlling guns, you are allowing other people the freedom of being safe from guns, instead of constantly being afraid of living in a country where there are an astounding amount of school shootings compared to anywhere else in the world.
Well, I think that's a great point, and we're going to put a pin on that because we're going to talk about that particular aspect a little more.
Yeah.
That is competing virtues. But I think that, a way you could phrase the freedom conflict, or the way that freedom plays an equal role for the liberal and the conservative side in, for instance, the gun control debate, is the conservative side is pretty straightforward. We want the freedom to do what we want to with guns, and we want to be able to buy them and shoot them and do whatever we want to with them, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the liberal argument, if you framed it in a freedom perspective, would say we want to be free of fear.
Exactly.
So let's talk about a couple of political hot buttons where liberals might be more obviously on the freedom train.
Yeah.
The one that everyone likes to talk about, abortion.
Yeah.
Freedom, conservatives or liberals on that one?
Liberal side is literally called pro-choice. So I would say it's kind of clear who is more obviously aligned with freedom in this case. But I think the argument that conservatives make, the baby deserves a right to be free and live and do whatever it wants to do. So that would be framing the conservatives' argument from a freedom perspective.
Well, and I think a simple way to put it is babies have the right to be free from murder.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think that's kind of how they would frame it. So let's talk about another one where I think that, maybe the liberal side is more clearly on the freedom train, and that is drug legalization.
Yeah. Liberals are more like, yeah, just let us do whatever we want to do with the drugs. Like, just let us, it's not harmful, it doesn't really affect anyone else. So let me just do drugs. And then conservatives are more control-oriented in that case.
It's interesting, right? I think that we're seeing here in our conversation that freedom as a value is used on both sides of the political spectrum to justify their positions.
Yeah, and though what one or another might claim, neither can really be backed up solely with the argument of freedom reigning supreme.
We're going to get into some of these specific political arguments later, and we're going to dissect these because there are clearly real disagreements.
Yeah.
And if we share the core value of freedom, it doesn't seem like these disagreements should be so stark, right? So it must be something else.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what we're going to get at. Okay, so freedom is, in your opinion, and I think in our brief analysis, a universal political value. If freedom is a universal political value, should it be curtailed based on other values we hold?
I think that freedom is one of many values that are very important. And just because it is very important and it is a part of everyone, does not mean that there aren't also things that are important and part of everyone. So freedom should not be held onto this sort of pedestal of being above everything else, because that can lead to dismissal of other very important things and thus very bad decisions made politically. The differences in views between conservatives and liberals in the COVID-19 pandemic, when it comes to both vaccines and wearing masks, I think that conservatives have been distinctly more on the side of freedom, in that freedom to not wear masks and not take vaccines. And liberals have been more on the side of safety in saying, no, you should wear masks, you should do vaccines, because real people, many, many real people, are affected by your refusal to be safe and are even killed by your refusal to be safe.
I think that's a great example. So let's make it even a little dumber. Let's take the dumbest, the easiest one.
Okay.
What if I want, so we're freedom lovers, right? Freedom's an ultimate human value.
I'm gonna say murder.
What if I like to murder people?
Oh my god.
What if that's my thing? Like, yeah, I'm a murderer. Come on, guys. What are you doing? Why is everyone so uptight about that? Why can't I murder other people?
In this case, by murdering people, you are not only murdering people, which takes away others' lives, which I think most could agree would be a bad thing. You are also taking away others' freedom.
I think what you're getting at is that our individual freedom needs to be curtailed when it conflicts with the freedom of others.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Are there any cases where an individual person's freedom should be curtailed when it doesn't, in fact, affect another person's freedom?
I am not exposed to every issue in the world, and
You're
there
right.
might be one or many that I'm forgetting about in this moment. But I can't think of any example where that would be true.
So let's talk about just a couple of quick issues that might be along those lines.
Uh-huh.
I think you brought up one, which is drugs. If my freedom doesn't interfere with your freedom, I should be allowed to do whatever. Every drug in the world should be legal.
In that case, your freedom should not be prime because your safety is more important.
You think it's okay for society to enact laws to protect me even if I don't really want to be protected?
Exactly.
Another one that comes across in that same line, in that same argument, is seatbelt laws or helmet laws.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
We hope that you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please consider checking out the next one in the series.
Or some of our other series on philosophy and life.
We upload videos every Friday, so don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. See you next week.